In this video, I'm going to show you how I took this old stool from our basement, and these two stools I got off of Facebook Marketplace and turned them into this. Let's get started. So first, I want to show you the inspiration photo that I got online. This is from the DIYvillage.com. The first thing I did was sand the tops down of all three stools down to the bare wood using an orbital sander and an 80 grit sandpaper. Next, I took that same sandpaper and sanded it by hand to get any circle marks out that might have been left by the sander and to get anywhere the sander couldn't reach. And this is what it looked like after. Next, I sanded the underside of the seat with the same 80 grit sandpaper. Then I moved on to the legs. I still used the 80 grit sandpaper, but for the legs I didn't need to sand down to the bare wood because I was going to be painting these. After all the sanding was done on all three stools, I then took a damp cloth to wipe all the sanding dust off. Now we can get into the fun stuff. It's finally time to stain. Okay, I do have to say there was a step that I missed and I did not record it before I actually put the stain on the wood. I did wipe it down with a wet cloth and let it dry before I added the stain. And what that does is that it opens up the wood grain so that it can take the stain more evenly. After applying this first coat, I let it dry and then applied a second coat. After the top was dry, I turned it over and it was time to stain the underside of the seat. I taped around the legs to make sure that I didn't get any stain on them. And just like the top, I applied 2 coats. After letting the stain dry overnight, the next day it was time to add paint to the legs. I used the Rust-Oleum Premium Ultra Matte in black. And here's what it looked like after. Again, I did this for all 3 stools. Next, it was time to draw out the design for the top. No fancy equipment needed here, just a colander and a bowl that were just the right size. Then for the numbers, I just used these wooden ones that I had laying around. And finally, for the letters, I used these stencils that I got from Hobby Lobby. Then I just painted everything in. For the N and the O, I used this permanent paint marker that I got from Dollar General. After everything was all painted, I did a light distressing with a 220 grit sandpaper, and then added 2 coats of this Minwax water-based polyacrylic in clear semi-gloss. The last step was to put a clear coat on the legs. I used Rust-Oleum's Ultra Cover in matte clear. I added 4 coats to this, flipping the stool over right side up and then upside down in between each of the coats to make sure I got full coverage. And that's it. Let me remind you what these stools look like before. And here's what they look like now. 3 industrial style inspired bar stools. Thanks for watching.